I'm an innocent man, Your Honor, and I have always been an innocent man.
Judgment of conviction is granted.
That's now for murder.
I went to that.
Imagine spending years, even decades, in a prison cell for a crime you never committed. You're counting days, not because of life, but because hope is the only thing keeping you alive. Then suddenly one morning, the guard walks up to your cell and says the words you've been praying for. Pack your thing, you're going home. But what happens next? Tears, shock, collapse, laughter, silence. Today we're diving into the top 9 most powerful, raw, and emotional reactions of innocent people finally set free. Get ready, because some of these cases will shake you. Let's begin.
I'm an innocent man, Your Honor, and I have always been an innocent man.
John Bunn. This is John Bunn. He spent 27 years wrongfully convicted of murder. I'm an innocent man, and I have always been an innocent man while living in Brooklyn, New York. Bunn was only 14 years old when he was arrested by NYPD detective Louis Scarcella. Bunn later spent 16 years behind bars and then 11 years out on parole, where he still fought to prove his innocence. Then finally his conviction was overturned based on the wrongdoing of Detective Scarcella and the fact that there wasn't even probable cause to arrest Bunn in the first place. Y'all convicted and had a wrong man in prison, and after 27 years of fighting to clear his name, he is finally exonerated for 27 years. But before he leaves the courtroom, he has a moment with the Judge Bunn, later filed a lawsuit against the city of New York and Detective Scarcella. He walked into prison as a child and walked out as a man still carrying wounds he never deserved. His story is not just a miscarriage of justice, but a reminder of how easily a life can be stolen. For 27 years, the system failed him, but he never stopped fighting for the truth. John Bunn's exoneration isn't just his victory, it's a warning to never let this happen again.
Mr. Brandt, to say that I'm sorry for what you have endured would be an understatement and grossly inadequate, but I say it to you anyway. The defendant's motion to vacate the judgment of conviction is granted.
David Ranta. This is David Ranta. He spent 22 years behind bars for a murder he did not commit in Brooklyn. New York Ranta was arrested by Detective Louis Scarcella. Yes, this is another wrongful conviction that's connected to Scarcella. Ranta was put in a police lineup run by Scarcella and was identified as the shooter. But decades later, reportedly, the key witness revealed that the detective had provided him with a description of whom to pick in the lineup. There was no physical evidence linking Ranta to the killing, and the evidence presented to the jury was allegedly fabricated. Ranta was then convicted and sentenced to 37.5 years to life in prison. But after spending over 2 decades in prison, the former witnesses admitted that they were pressured into testifying against Ranta. And now this is the moment his conviction gets thrown out. Mr. Brenton, to say that I'm sorry for what you have endured would be an understatement and grossly inadequate. But I say it to you anyway. The defendant's motion to vacate the judgment of conviction is granted after his handcuffs were removed. He hugged his family with all he owned thrown over his back. He walks out a free man after his release. He reportedly received $2 million from the state and a $6.4 million settlement from the city of New York. He didn't just lose 22 years, he lost birthdays, memories, and a life he never got to live. Every sunrise behind bars was a reminder of a system built to convict, not to understand. But when the truth finally broke through, it shattered decades of lies in a single moment. His freedom is justice delayed, but also justice reclaimed.
That's now for murder.
Please believe me, I went to that.
Judgment is vacated, the conviction is overturned, and as to Ms. Melon, the case is dismissed.
Susan Melon, this is Susan Melon. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole based on an untruthful testimony. She was 42 years old when she was arrested in Los Angeles, California at a McDonald's while taking her daughter to get a Happy Meal. But that was the last time she would see her child for 7 years, as she was charged for the murder of an ex-boyfriend. You are under arrest now for murder. Melon's conviction was based solely on an informant who claimed that Melon had confessed the killing to her. She was in prison for a total of 17 years until the informant was proven to be a pathological liar and an unreliable witness. And now this is the moment that Melon's case is finally overturned. The judgment is vacated, the conviction is overturned, and as to Miss Melon, the case is dismissed from tears in one moment to jumping. Enjoy the next. When released, Melon took her daughter to McDonald's to deliver that long-awaited Happy Meal. The state of California awarded Melon $597,000 in compensation, and reportedly, the Los Angeles City Council agreed to pay $12 million to Susan Melon. 17 years were taken from her, but her spirit refused to break. A single lie destroyed her world, but the truth rebuilt it piece by piece. Her reunion with her daughter wasn't just emotional, it was a victory over injustice itself. Susan Melon's freedom proves that even buried truth eventually rises.
Is in fact innocent because the evidence will show that it undermines the prosecution's case.
Buy me a big hamburger and we eat it together.
Luis Vargas. This is Luis Vargas. He was sentenced to 55 years to life for crimes he did not commit. Vargas was 29, living in Los Angeles, California, when he was charged with 3 sexual assaults. Based on the similar descriptions of these crimes, police concluded that it was the same person that committed all 3 attacks. Vargas was later convicted on all counts, and he spent a total of 16 years in prison until the California Innocence Project tested DNA on the remaining physical evidence and clothing from one of the victims. And it was not a match proving that Vargas did not commit these crimes. He is in fact innocent because the evidence will show that it undermines the prosecution's case. Vargas sat silently when he was exonerated from all crimes. Vargas only had one simple wish from his mother for when he would become a free man: please buy me a big hamburger. And we're together. Reportedly, after Vargas was exonerated, he received $886,000 in state compensation. Every day behind bars was a life stolen, a life he never lived but never gave up on. The system failed him, but the truth could not be denied forever. The chains that bound him physically could never break his spirit. Each test, each appeal, each moment of hope brought him closer to freedom. His reunion with the world outside prison walls was not just joy, it was vindication. Luis Vargas's exoneration is a testament that justice, no matter how delayed, must prevail.
State of Texas versus Daniel Viegas. Verdict Form B. We, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Viegas not guilty of...
Daniel Viegas. This is Daniel Viegas. He spent 18 years in prison for a double homicide he never committed in El Paso. Texas Viegas was arrested at 16, where an El Paso detective reportedly threatened him with beatings and the death penalty if he did not confess, and the teenage Viegas signed a confession that was prepared by the detectives. He tried to withdraw his confession a few hours after, but by then it was too late. He was charged with 2 counts of capital murder. With the false confession being the only piece of evidence, the jury was unable to agree on a verdict. Viegas had a retrial, and the jury returned a guilty verdict, and he was given a life sentence after spending 18 years in prison. The verdict was thrown out, and Viegas remained out on bond, where he got married and started a family. But now we're in the 3rd trial, if the defendant will please stand. This is the moment that Viegas will find out if he'll go home with his family or be sent back to prison to serve his life sentence. The state of Texas versus Daniel Viegas, verdict form B. We, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Viegas not guilty. Viegas is now a free man. You are no longer under any conditions. You are free to leave. Thank you. Reportedly, Viegas has filed a lawsuit against the city of El Paso. He entered prison as a terrified teenager and left as a man who reclaimed his life. 18 years of stolen freedom could not erase his courage or hope. A coerced confession nearly destroyed him, but truth could not be silenced. Every trial, every appeal, every moment of waiting was a battle he never gave up on. His first steps out of prison were not just freedom, they were a triumph over injustice. Daniel Viegas' story is a stark reminder: innocence must never be buried by lies.
Jackson, you're going to be free to go. Life is filled with small victories, and this is a big one. I wish you good luck. Thank you.
All right.
Ricky Jackson. This is Ricky Jackson. He spent over 39 years in prison for a murder he did not commit. Jackson was arrested at 18 years old, living in Cleveland, Ohio. The main witness in the case was a 12-year-old kid named Eddie Vernon, who in fact didn't see anything, and he said the police did pressure him into testifying against Jackson, which then later led to his conviction. Jackson initially was sentenced to die in the electric chair, but after spending 2 years on death row, his death sentence was reduced to life in prison nearly 4 decades later. The now 52-year-old Eddie Vernon came forward with the truth, stating that he never saw the murder happen. Charges against Jackson were then dropped, and after being wrongfully imprisoned for 39 years. This is the moment that Jackson hears that he is free to go. Mr. Jackson is going to be free to go. Life is filled with small victories, and this is a big one. I wish you good luck. Jackson is now outside for the first time as a free man. Jackson received $1 million in compensation from the state and an additional $2.65 million for lost income. He entered prison as a frightened young man and left as a survivor of injustice. 39 years of life stolen could not steal his hope or dignity. A coerced testimony nearly cost him everything, even his life. Every step out of prison was a triumph over decades of lies and corruption. Freedom came late, but the truth finally set him free. Ricky Jackson's story reminds us that justice delayed must never mean justice denied.
I feel overwhelmed, I feel excited, I feel grateful. I'm so happy.
Kirsten Loato. She was first convicted of first-degree murder, but on a retrial, she was convicted on the lesser charges of voluntary manslaughter and sentenced to 13 to 45 years. And after spending 16 years behind bars, a new hearing was presented with evidence that confirmed the actual day of the victim's death was when Loato was 3 hours away with her family, proving that Loato could not have possibly committed these crimes. This is Loato outside for the first time as a free woman. I feel overwhelmed, I feel excited, I feel grateful. I'm so happy. Loato has filed a lawsuit against the Las Vegas Police Department, and her compensation claim is ongoing. But where'd you know? Okay, well, we've got 16 years were taken, but not her courage or hope. The truth eventually proved what justice initially denied. Every day behind bars could not erase her spirit or determination. Walking free for the first time was both relief and vindication. Her fight proves that evidence, not lies, must guide justice. Loato's story is a reminder. The innocent must never be silenced. Brian Banks, a life destroyed by a false accusation. Brian Banks was a high school football star with a full scholarship waiting for him until a classmate falsely accused him of assault. At just 17, he was pressured into accepting a plea deal to avoid decades in prison. He spent 5 years behind bars and 5 more on parole, forced to register as a sex offender. Years later, the accuser admitted she had lied, and Banks was finally exonerated. His reaction was pure relief, hands on his head, tears and disbelief as his stolen future was finally returned. He entered adulthood with hope, only to have it stolen by a lie. 10 years of his life were taken, but not his spirit. The plea deal could not bind the truth forever. Exoneration brought not just freedom, but the restoration of a stolen identity. Every tear, every moment of despair was finally met with relief. Brian Banks' story proves that the truth, no matter how long delayed, will eventually prevail. Anthony Ray Hinton, 30 years on death row for nothing. Anthony Ray Hinton spent 3 decades on death row in Alabama for murders he never committed. The state used faulty ballistics and refused to give him a qualified expert. Hinton survived isolation, darkness, and hopelessness for 30 years until the Supreme Court ruled he had been denied a fair trial. The moment he stepped outside, he lifted his face toward the sun, smiling with tears streaming down, seeing daylight as a free man for the first time since his youth. 3 decades on death row could not break his spirit. Faulty evidence nearly ended his life, but truth eventually prevailed. Isolation and darkness could not erase hope or resilience. The sunlight he saw was more than freedom, it was vindication. Every year lost was a testament to patience, courage, and endurance. Anthony Ray Hinton's story reminds us that justice delayed is not justice denied, but vigilance is required. If you want more powerful real-life stories like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps these stories reach more people.